Morning. My name is Dr. Vinita Bhatt and I am working as an assistant professor in Janki Devi Memorial College in the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. Today I am going to take an important topic that is related to the ancient Indian Buddhist political philosophy, and that is called Agganna Sutta Digha Nikaya. Agganna Sutta is a Pali word and Digha Nikaya is actually derived from it. So we will see that the how state has evolved and how the concept of king and kingship, the theories related with king, the Rajtantras are related and mentioned in this Buddhist text in a very phenomenal way. So let's start. The learning objectives of this module is that we have to see four important objectives, and we will see that what were the issues of political authorities and what were the social, political, moral and other kind of obligations of ancient India. We will also see that how the concept of theory of kingship have been evolved as described by Gautam Buddha in the most important Buddhist text Digha Nikaya in Agganna Sutta. We will also elaborate on the evolution of concept of state, that is what we understand in the ancient Indian text as Rajya in Agganna Sutta. And we will also discuss about the socio-political equality, the most important branch of the Buddhist lens. So let's start with the introduction part. We know who were Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha was a great monk, the greatest Buddhist monk who established as a great social reforms in India. His teachings are found in three holy books. One is known as Tipitaka, which is a Pali word, and Tripitaka, which is a Sanskrit word. And the three basket is an English word. But what does that mean? The three Pitakas are of its own kind. The most important is the Vinaya Pitaka. Now what do we understand by Vinaya Pitaka? It is a basket of discipline. So what Gautam Buddha wanted to convey the message to the society and to his followers. Mainly he wanted to establish a kind of a code of conduct to be obeyed by the monks and nuns. The most important point here that I would like to highlight is earlier the nuns were not allowed to participate in the Buddhist sanghas. But later on, Gautam Buddha and his followers made it mandatory that even nuns were also allowed in the sanghas in order to establish the equality in the society. Now in the next part, we also see that there was another kind of pitakas. Second is Abhidhamma Pitaka and another was that the Upapitaka. Now in the Sutta Pitaka kind of thing, this was a basket of discourse. It means that it contained a teaching of the Buddhas. Now what were the teaching of the Buddhas? Buddha always wanted to establish the fact in the society that there should be no animal killing and there should be communal harmony among people and his disciples. And third was the Abhidhamma Pitaka, which was the philosophical ideas of the Gautam Buddha. Now in his teaching, what were the philosophical ideas? The philosophical ideas were that how people should behave and develop human-to-human interactions and how do they rest in the society. Now these were the five Nikayas. Now Nikaya is a Pali word. Why Pali is coming time and again here is because Sanskrit was the language of the Vedic time and Pali was the language of the time when Buddha started giving his teaching and when his followers started writing about that. The most of the Buddhist texts are actually written in the Pali language. So these were the five Nikayas. Number one is the most important and one of the most elaborative ones because in this particular Nikayas, several kind of narrative and discourses were taken place between Buddha on the one side and his disciple on the other side. The second was the Majjhima Nikaya. It was a middle-length narratives and the discourses same again with the Buddha and his followers. The third was the Samyutta Nikaya. These were, as compared to Digha Nikaya and Majjhima, a kind of shorter text but were arranged very thematically. And what were these topics, discussed in all these Nikayas were related to life, afterlife, soul searching, peace, like that. Number one was the Agganna Nikaya and the fourth one Kudakaya Nikaya, which means it basically was relevant because so many other kind of topics related to caste, related to society, related to gender discrimination, all such kind of topics were contained in the Kudaka Nikaya. Now we'll see in the Digha Nikaya part, it has 34 suttas in totality and 180 debatable dialogues between Buddha and his followers. Agganna Sutta, which we are going to discuss, which is the most attractive one, it is basically the 27th sutta of the Digha Nikaya, a voluminous, a comprehensive Buddhist text which relates with the teaching of Buddha on various issues like how society was evolved. In this, he basically tried to convey to the society that how Brihaspati and how Shukras, all those have created the concept of life in the society. And then family, the caste system, society and state. Now among these issues, the theory of kingship and the role of king and the dharma of king was mainly the most attractive one in the Agganna Sutta part. There we will also discuss that how discourses imparted by the Buddha to the two Brahmins. He somehow have given the enlightenment, the open heart to the two Brahmins, but the name of these two Brahmins were Vasistha and Bhardwaja. They basically were left by their own clan and came to join Sanghas. They were actually not very much happy with the Brahminical societal order in the society, and these two Brahmins somehow challenged the society that why the society is divided into different varnas and why the society is divided into different kind of caste, because which definitely at that point of time was given establish a kind of inequilibrium in the society. Now, last but not the least, Buddha also explained them that how these different varnas were, established in the society, like they were formed out of the same equal beings, and no one can be discriminated on the basis of caste or varna in the society. But let me explain you one thing here. It was not caste which came before. It was basically varnas which came before. And later on, it was further subdivided into the caste system in the society, and the reflection of the caste system in the society is very much reflective even in the present time. Now, we will start with the most important topic, that is theory of kingship. Before I go in the topic theory of kingship, important is to see the word king here. Now, in the Vedic period time and in the ancient time, that is from the 5th century, 6th century, 7th century and to some extent 8th century also, the role of the king, the duties of the king, the dharma of the king were most important aspect of the society. It was never like a ruler who gained a hereditary power from a king and then to the prince. It was never like that. It was never like this a situation where he was chosen out of the consent of their own clan member. It was never like that. Ancient Indian Vedic philosophy, ancient Indian Vedic system was very different, and in fact same for Rajas, Maharajas also. Now here we see the evolution of the concept of state. This is really very interesting. Why? Because this topic is very much related to the Western political philosophy. You must have heard the name of the most important famous philosopher Thomas Hobbes, John Locke and Rousseau. They propounded the important theory, that is the social contract. What was that theory was all about? The theory was that when the people of the community, they came together and they decided to surrender all their rights to the sovereign. Who was the sovereign? The leader was the sovereign, and in return the leader decided to give them the security to protection of the right. The sovereign became the protectorate of their rights actually. So this is important, and this concept is very much related to the social contract theory of the Western philosophy. Here we will see how the state was evolved in our system. When I say state in ancient Indian political philosophy, here we do not mean the provinces, like India is divided into different states in these time that we know. But at that point of time, the state was India as a whole. So from a limited role of a leader, we see that how state have evolved in a very ethical institution. And who used to lead that ethical institution? King used to rule that ethical institution. And king at that point of night was never a kind of an entity which used to only give order to the society. In fact, on return, he also used to establish kind of righteous way and many more other kind of obligations and duties which he also has to fulfill for his subjects. Now here we see that the Dhamma in Pali language and Dharma in the Sanskrit language. What does that mean for a king? So what does that mean? The first phase which relate to that how with the Sarva Sammati, the sovereign became the Mahasammat. Now, what is the meaning of Mahasammat? If you do the Sandhi Vichhed of this word, Maha means great. Sammata means consent, choice. Mean a person who has been chosen by the people by their consent, by their choice and not through by any autocracy. So here you see in the first phase who were the great elect. The king was the great elect and he was established. Why? In order to maintain the law, the order in the society and to make a welfare policies for the protection of the people. Second phase was when he became the Adhipati. He had taken all those rights of the land. He was the sovereign authority to take care of the fields. That's why he was known as Khattiya, because he was the protectorate of the Khet, that is land. The third was that was a phase in the 5th, 6th century. You must have known by a great leaders or the rulers of ancient India, starting from Chandragupta Maurya, Samrat Ashok, Raja Harshvardhan, all those leaders, rulers of the ancient Indian polity, you must have seen that how they have contributed in the Buddhist Sangha and rising Rajatantra. So there was a time in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th century when the Sangha, the Buddhist Sangha also decided and in fact very proactive to maintain their cordial relations with the rulers of that point of time. That is why you can see that Ashoka Sthamb, Ashoka Stoop are everywhere. You can see Raja Harshvardhan policies. He was very much, encouraged and in fact was impressed, inspired with the philosophy of Buddha. Now in the third phase, you can see in this phase basically it was after the 8th century and the starting of the 9th century when Raja became the promoter of the Dhamma. There you can see the Kakavati Dhammiko Dhamma Raja and the best example of this was King Ashok. Now we have seen the concept, the main elements of the state. You must have heard a great theory of Kautilya. Who was Kautilya? Kautilya was the first teacher of the political science. He had written 2 important books, famous books. One is Niti Shastra, the other was Arthashastra. In Buddhist idea of the elements of the state, in Kautilya, Chanakya Niti, he discussed about Saptanga theory. What was Saptanga? The 7 elements of the state. And what was Buddhist idea on the elements of the state? Now in the present time when you see, what are the most important elements of the government of this point of time? Definitely the army, the public institutions, the civil societies, the universities, the think tanks, parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and other public institutions. Now here you see what were the 7 elements of the king. One was the king because he was the sovereign. Why he was declared as the sovereign in the society? Because the community people by their own will surrendered their all natural rights to the sovereign, and the sovereign in return decided to give them the protection, the security, the welfare measures, and much more. Second was the territory. In the Pali language, you can call it the Ratta. What was territory? Basically, the sovereignty. The sovereignty was very, very close to the idea of king. The power of the king was actually determined by the territory of the king. And that territory was divided into village. Now you can easily compare the decentralization process in India in the present time. The present government, you see our government, works in the three-tier system. First is the central government, second is the state government, third is the local government. That's called Panchayati Raj institution. But if you go back and see in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and in the 8th century, that phenomena of democracy, decentralization, democratic ways were not old. They were ancient old. Here you see the Gam. Second you see the Nigam. The third was Janpad. The next was Nagar. And the last was Pakanta. Here you see that concept of Janpad and that the Nagar and all these terms are quite prevalent even today. So from even present time, you can try to go back and refer to history and try to understand that what is the relevance of the Janpad of that time, what villages used to do, who was the head of the villages and etc. So Panchayati Raj system which came to India in the 1970s does not mean that that idea came to India in 1970s. It has its roots even back down. If you go to the history, you will find the roots of such concepts in the ancient Indian Vedic philosophy. Next was the ministry and bureaucracy. Even in the present time, you see, the ministry play a council of ministers play a very important role. They are the one who also contribute in the policy making. And bureaucracy, they are the one who implement all those policies at the ground level. In the recent time, you know that bureaucracy with the name civil services in India. But at that point of time, they were called Amakka and Pasija. Next was the armed forces. Next was the treasury. Then the allies and the people. Now, why people were important? And the Buddhist text says Manushyas were important. Manushyas were important for the king because king cannot rule any country or a no man's land where people don't live. Any king, the power of king can be easily determined if you see the happiness level of the people there. If people are happy in the territory, they will definitely contribute in the prosperity of the state. So that's why all these points which are the main elements of the states have been evolved in the Buddhist ancient philosophy. Now, Buddha again described the social classes, as I have already mentioned you in my discussion that there were two Brahmins, Vasistha and Bharadwaja. They were very fed up with the type of system, the type of class division in the society or the caste division in the society. They had taken all those questions and met Buddha and asked that why society is divided into different varnas. That varnas later on divided into jatis and subjatis. There you see Buddha also recognized that the society was divided into four social classes. One class was land-owning class. Basically, these were the people who had many big lands with them. They were the feudatories of most northern India. If you see the feudalism, the idea of feudal lords were very much prevalent. Next was the priestly class. They were the Brahmins. They were allowed to read Sanskrit text. They were allowed to read philosophy. They were allowed to conduct ceremonies in the society. That is why they had an upper hand in the society and were very much respected. The next was the trading class. Now, if you see in the Gupta Empire, the golden age of ancient India, in the Gupta period time, even in India, people used to transact with the gold coins. That was the idea of India at that point of time. So in the trading class, the merchants basically, they used to do trading with interstates and even to the international countries also, like Egypt and Mesopotamia. We do have evidences which shows that India had a close connections with Egypt and Mesopotamian countries, and also to the Central Asian countries also. And the fourth one were the hunters. They were not educated class. They were even not aware with the consciousness of having education. That is why the role and the status of the hunters in the society was not very respectable. Now, Agganna Sutta challenges that kind of social order in the society. That why society and people are divided into different varnas and jatis and subjatis. So in this context, you can see the monarchy flourished. But let me tell you one thing. The word monarchy was never ever written like this. Monarchy was the mean at that point of time. We know this word and equate this word with Rajtantra and sometimes Prajatantra. Now even Rajtantra also, one has to understand the clear meaning of Rajtantra. Rajtantra does not mean the autocratic or despotic rule of the king. Rajtantra means the sovereign, the king who is ruling any province or maybe an empire. But even king has to do a lot of moral duties and used to perform his dharma. Next you can see that state generally means the king, Buddha, many of his disciples from oligarchic republic. This is very interesting point. Even Gautam Buddha was from the Sankhya clan and even he was from a very aristocratic family. But he decided to leave all his titles, all his kingdom only because for the soul searching, for the enlightenment, for the harmony, for the life. He decided to give away all his titles. Now, this is called the origin of kingship, the king. But what do we understand by the context of king in the context of Agganna Sutta? Agganna Sutta mentions that it was for a king, it was important for him and it was one of his important social duty to maintain order in the society and also to control any kind of theft, stealing or also protection of the natural resources. Natural resources like water, like minerals, like mountainous region, rivers and much more things. King must not be hereditary but by selected by the consent of the people. Now, this is the most democratic way. In the earlier ancient time, kings were not being selected or recruited by the way they like to do, but with the consent of the people. So at that time, there used to be a kind of a committee, proper committee, and the people of that committee, the members of the committee used to select the king. It was never a hereditary. It was always go by the gun of the rajas, the virtues of the rajas and not by the hereditary clan or the family he belongs to. Next is the duties of a king. I was reading Agni Puran and chapter 22 of Agni Puran says what should be the duties of the leader, what should be the duties of a king. So in the present time, whenever we ask that we want to become a leader, and whosoever are leading important positions in any public, private institutions in India, one should understand that what should be the qualities of a leader. And in our ancient philosophy, the qualities of leaders are very well mentioned. So from the context of Agni Puran, chapter 22 discusses about it. That a leader or king should always be very generous, should always practice dan pratha, should give away all his wealth to the people in terms of dan, and also should encourage people and to make welfare policies for them. The subjects are important for the king, not the money or so. So these are the duties of the king if you see that he must be of noble qualities like generosity, means dan vyavastha, pleasant in very much behavior, should not be autocratic, a good listener, aim to promote welfare of the people, to make welfare policies of the people so that they can flourish, equality in behavior, and ability to demarcate right and wrong, and to take action whenever it is required. I would like to mention here one such king that's called from a Vardhan dynasty, Raja Harshvardhan. Raja Harshvardhan is the apt example in the ancient polity of India. He was the kind of a leader who started in Prayag and Kashi, the Mahamoksha Sabha. And after every 5 years, he used to come and used to donate all his wealth to his people. He was the kind of a leader who always believed in inclusivity. That is why he allowed all the religions to flourish during his reign in the Vardhan dynasty, especially from Thaneshwar to Vallabhi to Malwa till Kamrup till Gordon and to some extent Magad also and Kannauj. Now there we see the dharma, vidhi, duty or righteousness. What does that mean? This is basically the qualities of the king written in Agganna Sutta, that king derive power from people and he is not above law. Unlike kings of different other countries where they believe they choose themselves for infinity. But in ancient Indian philosophy, it was never like that. It was always by the people consent, people choice. Second, that he should give respect automatically. So if you are a dedicated person, if you are dedicated to your area, to their people, if you are generous enough, definitely people, give you respect not out of fear, but out of love. Third was respect for him and obey his command. Now we as subjects, our Constitution of India also teaches us that we have fundamental rights, but we should also understand that fundamental rights comes along with fundamental duties. It should be the duties which should come first, not the rights. We should always understand what we can give to our state, that is India or Bharat, and not like that what kind of rights do we have. We should always perform our duties well as a good citizen. The protection of a state is not only the sole responsibility of a government or a leader, it is the responsibility of all the people. And if they don't know about their responsibility, they should know about it. Now, here is in the dharma, the king must many duties like the protection of the state, as I have already mentioned you about it, and also side by side eliminate all kind of crimes in the society. You will be amazed to know that these rulers of ancient India used to have their Guptachar Sabha or the investigation agency to them in order to understand about the criminal system or the crimes performed in the society and all, and protect elements and other kind of priorities also which are related to the duties. Now we will see that what were the power of the king. Now you should understand the meaning of power. There is a book, Republic, of Thomas Hobbes about power. What do we understand by it? The hard power, the soft power. These days India is showing is though soft and power does not equate with each other, but culture play a very important role. India is known as a soft power country in the world. Now, what was that? The power of the king. He sometimes in the society, if he had any kind of information related to the revolutions, then he used to negligent to the destitute, precarious living condition of the people and the problem in the economy of the state. Naturally, these are the important objectives. One should know about it. Power does not mean that how many years you are ruling. Important is that what is the way of ruling. And second primary duty of the king was to suppress revolution. But why to suppress revolution? Because if a society will only be involved in the Protestants' revolution, then how society will flourish? But king should always understand that such kind of situation should not come on the way of the people, which can make them to go for protest or revolution. People always protest whenever their aspirations or demands are not met. So a king should always use his power in a positive way to bring many kind of affirmative actions and make public policies for the welfare of the people. And we have enough examples in our past which shows that our rulers or kings used to perform such kind of duties in a very appropriate manner. Now, power of people. We understand in our Constitution of India, the first line says, "We the people of India." So the word people has an important phenomena. Power of the people to dethrone king? Can't you ask this question to many more historians and to your teachers which can tell you about that whether it was possible? It was very much possible because I have already mentioned you the power of the people in my previous slides. People used to elect kings and people used to support kings in the time of crisis or warlike situations, even for the trading activities also, and even to pay taxes. So it was basically people who are the base of the system. And if there will be no base or if the base will be weak, a king will never be able to rule his kingdom. So there we see the power of the people to dethrone king. So no doubt we know that how to select a king, but the king will not be able to give service to the people of the state. Then he can be dethroned by the people and select another king. The most important lines from the Agganna Sutta, which talks about the philosophy of Samrat Ashok. One point of time he said that all people are my children. Just as I desire that my own children may be provided with complete welfare and happiness, both in this world and the next, so do I desire the same for my people. So again, if you connect these to the ancient philosophy of Agganna Puran, there also it is mentioned that a king should always treat his subjects, his people, as his own children. Samrat Ashoka has two children, Sangamitra and Mahinda. But he never, and he allowed them to go to Sri Lanka to propagate the idea of Buddhism and to spread the teaching of Buddhism. But it does not mean that Samrat Ashok during his time does not allow other girls or other boys to go to other parts of the world for soul searching or maybe for philosophical idea or other kind of getting education, because he considered all the people of the kingdom as his own children. Now if we see the concluding part, what can we learn from this module? There are important lessons which we can learn and can very well apply in our practical life. When we see the ideal king, I already mentioned you about Chandragupta Maurya, Samrat Ashoka, Raja Harshvardhan and all. So from there, another king like Mahasudasana, for instance, in the northern history, because Buddhism was very much prevalent in the northern part of India. There we see he established a perpetual grant, that is Danang, to the people who were hungry. Now this idea is very much close to Raja Harshvardhan practice of Dan or donation, when he used to go to Prayag and Kashi after every 5 years and used to donate all his wealth to the needy one. And drinks for the thirsty, land for the poor, and money for those in want. So if you see these points, food for the hungry, drinks for the thirsty, land for the poor, money for those who are in want, can't we apply this in our own life? Is it really important to first become a king and a queen or a prince or a princess to do such kind of philanthropical or social work? Even a child also can do this by sharing his meal or maybe sharing his books or sharing his stationery with the needy one. I can take my example also. I should ask this question from myself also. What I am doing today? I am earning a good salary, but whether I am also thinking the other side of the story of some people, whether I am into such practice of providing food to the hungry or maybe some kind of drinks to the thirsty. I may not afford land to the poor, but I can make from my pocket, from my own, some kind of money to the one who are in need. So we can learn a lesson from those rulers who were the followers of the Buddhism. We can learn a lot from them and can apply in our life. The second point is the moral order. Today we see in every day, if you go to metros, to public transport and to other areas, we see the morality are compromised. We are not fulfilling somehow, we forget to fulfill our duties, maintain cleanliness and all. So there we see the problem of offense against the family and property. In the present time, people from their own family members, they are in continuous struggle and fight and conflict with each other for property and many much more things. The moralities are compromised. One need to understand our parents have given us this life. It is our duty to give back to them, rather only asking from them that to fulfill this for us, the best gift, they have already given us, that is education. Now it is our duty to take this forward and use our education for the constructive work. The third is in the Kakavatichananda Sutta, a variety of offenses. We should always understand and refrain ourselves from stealing, from cheating, from violence. Violence may be abusive violence, lying, evil speaking. We should not lie to our parents, to our teachers, to our elders, and even to nobody. And adultery as disguised by the outcome of the poverty. So people who are actually leading in good positions today should understand the concept of poverty. One should always understand the other side of the people and should not make a mockery of someone's poverty or so. Last but not the least, theft and violation of property would disappear only when all have been given the means of subsistence. So in the ancient time, the rulers used to provide meaning of subsistence, like the economic subsistence, the policies, many other kind of avenues to the people to earn and then to govern. It is important that we should learn all these lessons and should apply in our real life and then to implement in our this life to the people, and should create jobs and create other kind of avenues to the people so that they can earn a good life, a prosperous life. With that, this is I would like to say thank you for listening to me. Yes.